Greetings friends and fellow cigar box guitar enthusiasts. Dale Puckett here, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to wire up a single coil and an embedded piezo underneath the saddle with a toggle switch and a volume control. And I'll be using this Padron box with the Home Depot neck, and this will be our demonstration instrument. All right, let's get started. All right, right off the bat, you're going to need some wire cutters, some strippers, and I mean like wire strippers. And this one here has different sizes, right, for different gauges. You're going to need a soldering iron, and preferably one that gets pretty hot. I use this guy here, which it's got an adjustable temperature thing, and I always keep that thing pinged, rev to the hilt. And anyhow, so here's a sponge. And I usually put water in this thing here so I can clean off the tip of this thing as I'm going. So you can use a rag, a wet rag, or anything, but it's real important to keep these tips clean. The cleaner they are, the easier they are to solder, and the longer these tips last. So it's good to keep your tip clean. What else you will need is going to be piezo, and I have several here. I have 3 different sizes. These come in all different styles. Rods. These are called discs. These are large ones. This is a medium one. This comes actually pre-wired with contacts. Here's a smaller one. It really doesn't matter. We'll go with the medium one here for this video. Last night I got one of these basic 3-way guitar pickup selector switches from CB Giddy. You can see the part number there. And this is what it looks like. It's one of those telly styles. And it's got 9 tabs here across the bottom. I'll open this up here and take a look at it. I'm not really sure if all of these are similar in style as far as soldering the connections. But I will show you a little trick here on this one here. And I did ohm it out. The output of the switch is the center. And then the input is 1, 2, 3. So you have 3 inputs. Here's the output. And then these 3 on this side are repeats of this side. So it's kind of tricky. You could actually have this thing going to 3 different pickups. One pickup, another pickup, and then another pickup. But I like to have both pickups in the middle. So what I do is I do some jumpers in here, and I'll show you how to do that. I jumper these. And that way when it's in the middle position, it gets both pickups on either side. So I will show you that. And then last but not least, you're going to need a magnetic pickup, and this could be any kind of pickup that you want, whatever you choose. Single coil, humbucker, doesn't matter. If it's a humbucker, you might have more than just 2 wires. On these single coils here, you just have 2. Sometimes you might have 3 with a ground. So if you have 3 with a ground, you're going to take one of those grounds and tie it to, usually the black is ground, so you tie the extra wires to this one here. Then this essentially would become one. It would be this guy and the ground, and then this one here. So that's what you're going to need. Wire cutters, strippers. Oh yeah, solder. You will need some solder. I don't know what this is as far as it's just solder. I can't recommend a name brand or a style. I go with whatever works, right? So, and then last but not least, for me, since I'll be doing detail work, I need my glasses. All right, here we go. And you might remember from previous videos, I like to take these plastic covers off of these things that exposes the coil, and then I like to rough them up on the sander, make them look all old and dingy. So that's what we're gonna do right now. And just like that, nice and old looking. Next, I just decide where the pickup is going to go on the guitar, and then I mark it out so that I can cut out the hole. Now you'll notice there's a little gap right here, and that little gap is because, watch on the inside when I open it, you'll see it's all of this material here. and on the top. So you have this material here, mainly this material here that you can't get the pickup that way, so you gotta have to kind of scunch it over. So these are little tricks, right? I moved it over here just to avoid all that mess, and so the pickup would actually fit on the inside there. So next I'm gonna cut this thing out. Do you hear all them crickets? Because it's nighttime. So what I've been doing is I put the frets on and I cut out the pickup hole, and I also put these little blocks here and screwed the pickup into it. I also, with the Forstner bit, I cut out for the piezo. Now, none of this has to do with the wiring or the soldering. This is all the preliminary stuff. And I also installed the jack. And one final thing I forgot to mention as far as the materials needed, I like to use this flux. I inherited this from my father-in-law, and this has been around probably since the 50s or the 60s, who knows, I don't know, but I just get a little Q-tip and then dab it in there and put it on whatever electronics. I know some of you are going to say that this is the wrong kind, and perhaps it is, but it works. The purpose of flux is so that the solder is more flowy. Without flux, sometimes the solder doesn't like flow. This just kind of helps everything kind of flow together. So again, this might not be the exact right style. It seems to work. Some solder actually has flux built into it, but I did want to mention that and just kind of show that to you. I mean, this is I've been using this ever since the beginning, and it doesn't seem to ever go away. It's like a waxy paste kind of a stuff. Next, I'm going to actually physically install the potentiometer and the switch, but I need to know where. So what I do is I mark out with a ruler. This is a 23-inch scale, so it's 23 inches from the nut or the 0 fret all the way to the saddle, and wherever that's going to be where the saddle is going to go. And this is a special custom saddle. So the saddle is going to go right there. And the reason why that's important is because, like, for me, that's, you know, I do palm muting and stuff, and so my palm will be right about here under normal playing conditions. Well, I like that volume control to be right there, and then the switch right on the back side here. So I'm going to put the switch right here and the volume control right there, so that when I'm palm muting, I can just reach over and we have the potentiometer in place, and then using the Dremel, I cut a little slot here about the size of a quarter, and that is for the switch. And then I verified that it was going to toggle back and forth. All right, so now we are ready to solder. All right, so I went ahead and numbered these pins here. Now, when the switch is in this position, it's pointing towards number 1. So 1 and 5 are tied together. 2 and 6 are tied together, and 3 and 7 are internally tied together. Number 4 is the output. So when it's in this position here, then it'd be 1 and 5. When it's in the middle, it would be 2 and 6. And then when it's facing this way, it's pointing towards 7 and 3. All right, so I'm going to put a jumper between pin 1 and 2 and 6 and 7. For the purpose of this video, I created these little jumper so that it could look nice and neat, but you could actually just put a wire across there and it would do the same thing. So normally what I do before I solder is I apply a very thin layer of flux to all the surfaces that I'm going to solder. And this is just kind of, it's not exact. It's very just kind of smearing it. Put it on the jack, and all the little wires, I'll just dip them in just to get a little bit of a, that's why this stuff lasts long, because it's just a tiny little bit. That's all you need. And then I oftentimes go through and just pre-touch all the little parts that are going to need some solder. Now I'm putting a little solder on the back of the potentiometer here because I'm going to ground the potentiometer. And so now I'm going to solder my jumpers. And then I'm also going to put some solder on the input of the switch here, on the output of the switch, and the other input. So the only places that's going to be an input is going to be pin 1 and pin 7. The output is going to be pin 4. Next, I'm going to go from the output of the switch to the input of the potentiometer. So I just pre-measure and cut a wire, dip the tips in the flux, and then what I like to do, sometimes I'll just set this with this little guy sticking out here so that I don't need a third hand, and then I'll just kind of pre-coat the tips of my wire with some solder. And again, I keep my tip clean here, so off camera I'm cleaning it so it's nice and shiny. And then, so I have solder on the tip of here, and I also have solder on the connectors here. And the nice thing about that is that all you have to do is touch them to each other and then put the soldering iron on, and then the solder just melts together. So it's a real quick touch. Basically, you're just touching it. Here is a little trick that I do for the piezo. Notice I took the leads off here, but you still have the solder on both the ground, which is the outside ring, and the hot part, which is the inside ring. So this is what I do. If it's a brand new piezo, then I will just apply a little bit of solder to the inside and the outside so it looks similar to that. So next what I will do is take my flux and my leads, again dip my leads into the flux, And also I'm going to coat my leads with some solder. Now here's the trick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some hot solder on my soldering iron. So I'm going to clean it nice and shiny. I dip this into the flux and then I just touch it here and I get a little bit of solder on here, and then watch how fast this is. Just bam. I just touch it and it's on there good. Look at that. I'll do the same thing with the ground side. So I'm going to clean this guy again. Clean. Get a little bit of solder on here. Just a tiny little bit. And then just touch it. And there you have it. Pretty simple. Next, we're going to connect the output of the potentiometer to the jack. So I've selected some of this shielded wire for this video purpose here. So you can see this shielded wire's got a ground, which is connected to this aluminum foil that's in there. And what I do is I connect that ground to the black wire. So I just kind of twisted them around on both sides. So here's the ground. Again, it's connected to the aluminum foil, which is the shield. And I just connect it to this black one here. So basically I'm making it just one wire, continuity wise. So I have the ground and then the hot. So the hot wire here, the red one, that's going to be the output, which is the center pin of this potentiometer. And then this ground here, I'm going to connect the chassis of the potentiometer and this lower right leg as well. Actually, what I'm going to do here is I got a little jumper, little ground guy, and I'm going to attach the chassis to that lower right pin here. So this is just going to be easier. The thing about this is it gets hot and then you got to like let go. It'll burn your finger. All right. Ta-da! Next, I'm going to put some solder on my shield cable. Beautiful. Next, I attach my shield cable to the potentiometer. The next order of business is to attach the pickups to the switch here. So again, I tin my leads here. There's the piezo. And here's the mag. next we will tie all the grounds together. So I have 4 ground leads. I have this one here, which is the output of the potentiometer. Then I have this one here, which is going to be a bridge ground. And then I have the piezo pickup and the magnetic pickup. And I just tie them all together and then solder them up. And I'm making all of these extra large and exaggerated just so you can see them. Normally they're like smaller, little cleaner, but I just made these all large so that you can see them in the video camera. And finally, the last thing I'm going to do is attach the ground to the jack and then the hot lead to the jack, and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, as far as the jack goes, the portion of the metal that touches the center, that's the ground, and then the portion of the metal that touches this little extender, that's the hot part. So I will start off by doing the ground side. Actually, I'll do the hot side first. Sometimes you can blow on it, get it to cool down quicker. And then, I know you can't see it because my big old fat hand's in the way. I'll show you when I'm all done here. Come on. Bend, you. All right. I'm going to show you up close here. Alright, it doesn't have to be pretty as long as the solder joints are good. That really is all that matters. Now I'm going to test everything out to make sure all connections are soldered correctly. Alright, to test it out, I just plug it in. And I will start off by checking the volume control. So the volume control works. And I am in the middle position here. So that means both pickups should work. Here's the piezo works. And the single coil works. When I'm over here, it should be just the piezo and no single coil. And when it's here, it should be just the single coil and no piezo. Yay! Back to the middle. Piezo and single coil and volume. Wow, I love it when it works. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, share, and don't forget there is a virtual tip jar in the upper right hand corner of my YouTube channel. If you want to hear what this one sounds like, be sure to tune in to the next video. See you then.